welcome to another episode of Founder Wisdom Podcast. Today we have an interesting guest. Her name is Karen Christians. She is a jeweler, a teacher, writer. Karen, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Thank you, Charles, for this opportunity to join your podcast. I I work out of Lowell, Massachusetts. I founded a jewelry school right out of college, but a very late bloomer in college. No, I didn't have a business plan. It's running about
I didn't
20.
either.
It was running about 24 years now. It's called Metalworks. It's located in Waltham, Massachusetts. It's quite a fun school. When I live in Waltham, Massachusetts. My husband works as an engineer for Draper Labs, and he really loves it there. And I've been in my home here in my studio in Lowell at Western Avenue Studios for about 6 years now. So really enjoying it. Teach out of here, and I teach a lot all over. Wrote a book called Jewelry of Burning Man. So I've came out in 2015, and now it's in it's gone in about 8 museums now. So it's done very, very, very well. Self-published it, put together the Kickstarter, had no idea what I was doing, lived in panic for 30 days while it grinds around. They're never fun, but it was fun. But yeah, it's been doing really, really well. And now I'm working on book 2, which is Jewelry of Star Trek. So that's a lot of fun to do that. So
Yeah, very interesting.
Make jewelry tools. That's the other thing I do.
Yeah, jewels. Well, we may talk about that. Is it fair to say that jewelry is like your passion in crafting it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it covers every aspect of what we know now as STEAM. When I was at Artisans Asylum, I started a jewelry shop there for teaching. And when I was at Artisans Asylum, there was a group from Tufts that came through, and they wanted to do STEM research, of course, because it's a premier makerspace and all of that. And I said, well, it's really STEAM. And they go, well, yeah, but it's not really about the art, because the art really doesn't have anything to do with science, technology, engineering, and math. And I said, tell you what, why don't you come over here and we'll sit down for free, and I'll walk you through and have you make a ring for you to wear. And by the time we were looking at metal and metallurgy and how it heats and how it solders and how it rolls, everything, they just said, okay, we're changing the program. It's definitely STEAM. Because they realize that there is not just the art you would sell from it or the art that is appealing. There's an art to really doing STEAM well. And if you both your brain and abilities to combining all of the aspects of STEM into STEAM, I mean, it's a real art to be able to do it successfully and have it come out clean and look just those right little touches. And we notice those touches. It's something that I've always appreciated. And when I lived in Silicon Valley years ago, I mean, that's when Stephen Jobs was just he was in his garage, and there was something very different, that the way that a lot of the sort of growing computers were doing is just that there was an elegance and there was an art to way that he put it together. And I think that that's really been the standard now of that company is what has made them, so good. And
just to build these beautiful devices that are so simple to use. It's the arts and science question is kind of interesting. It's kind of a right brain, yes, left brain. I believe both are very valuable, being rational and being artistic, being creative, yes, doing the actual work, I think both should be in equilibrium. And I was asking the passion question because most people in life, their work is not their passion. It's not their ikigai. It's not what they were born to do, what they could get paid for. So do you sometimes realize that you're kind of fortunate? Are you like often grateful to do what you do? Because a lot of people, they just hit the 9 to 5, they do something they don't like. Sometimes they hate their boss, um I'm just curious to see your perspective on the whole thing.
Um, I worked for a professor at Harvard for about 8 years, and I worked for
Mm,
other managers for other years in parts of, um, biology, and I've always had a real interest in it, and the professor
mhm.
that I worked for at Harvard was very interested in circadian rhythm and bioluminescence, and it
Okay.
was a really incredibly
Hmm.
fascinating subject to me. You
Oh
are
yeah.
exactly right. It was still the 9 to 5 job. I wasn't a researcher. I wasn't, I wasn't a postdoc. I wasn't a graduate student. I never thought when I was 40 that actually I could go back to college. That was something that just like, well, but I'm so old. I couldn't possibly go back
Mm,
to college. And my the story is for me is that how I got out of the 9 to 5 thing is that actually I was in a fire. I was in a very bad fire
mm.
at a Halloween party in 1989 where somebody actually set my costume on fire. And I ended up in the
Really?
hospital. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, that
That's
is
the yeah, and so
it's disturbing.
I yeah, I was in the hospital for a month and, I had skin grafts in the back of my legs, and it was a terrible, terrible experience. And about 3 to 4 months after I got out of the hospital, I said I needed to do something that was cathartic and something that would be fun for me after I'd gone through this whole thing. I said, I
Mhm.
really love jewelry. I'd love to take a jewelry class. I'll take a class over
Hmm.
at Cambridge Center for Adult Education over in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I walked
Mhm.
in and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, it's so exciting and all these tools." And then I stared down and I went, "Oh my goodness. You have to use a torch in order to make this, to create this."
Oh, the trauma,
Oh,
no?
so that was me coming to sort of together with the fact that now I had to hold this torch in my hand,
Mhm.
and I was making a little tiny, tiny band ring, and I had a little silver band ring, and
Mhm.
then I had to join 2 pieces together with a little bit of
Mhm.
solder, and I said to my teacher, "Don't go anywhere. Sit right next to me. Just walk me through everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'll drive it, but just, and by the time that little as you move the torch around, it heats up the metal enough for the solder to intermediary solder to fill in. I watched this little slipstream of solder, and it was just my everything it was like the world stopped. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I'd created alchemy. I had made 2 of these pieces of metal joined together by this process, and
Mhm.
literally from that day, I never looked back, and it was 3 years of adult ed, and then finally I said, the thing I'm missing about this is the art because there's a part of me that really wants to get this sort of hidden spot of art out." And so I
Hmm.
applied to Massachusetts College of Art as a freshman, or no, as a sophomore
Nice.
because of my board of attempts at college, trying to figure out what to do, and they took me, and I flew through the entire program. I graduated with, high honors, and it was just a great experience. And then the next after I graduated, you come into this really tender time, okay? And what I'll do is I will, I'm thinking of, teaching, and so I went right into teaching right
Mhm.
after that.
What was the step between? Was it between teaching and entrepreneurship? When was the time that you said, "Okay, I'm going to fly by my own wings now"?
Okay, so as I started to teach there, I started a program at
Mhm.
the Cambridge Center called Directed Open Studio. Opportunity to be able to sit down, and if they've missed a class, which very happens often when you're trying to take a class at night and you're busy and it's so
Mhm.
many weeks, and it's one thing,
Yeah.
that I wanted to give them an opportunity to not leave the course, but to catch up on their own, and we started this lovely little community, and I think that was the birth of the entire entrepreneurship, is that
Okay.
I could create something on my own that stuck, and that program, by the way, is still there today since
Nice.
1997. It was that I didn't want to I enjoyed teaching so much that I didn't want to pursue this avenue of making jewelry and selling it and doing the craft show route. It just didn't seem to me, it wasn't a good fit for me. I really liked being around students. I really liked being around these communities, and I think the real key here is that it was a community, and that was where the passion was starting to set, was
Mm,
really these building blocks of that. And then what it really got going is that I went to a conference, a professional conference for goldsmiths called the Society of North American Goldsmiths. And it was in
okay.
that conference that I had realized what I really need to do was to make some kind of a community studio where there was teaching in it and try to combine it somehow. And I had written it all out. I mean, literally quote the napkin sketch. Okay. And I sat there at all these academics and all these people, and I went, yeah, I think I'm going to start a school. And so there was a person in my class over at Cambridge Center who had just made tons of money in the .com, and she'd come to me and she said, you know, I've been with you and I've been seeing how you work and how you engage students and how you're always forward thinking on everything you do. And I understand. She said, what would you like to do? And I gave her my little napkin sketch and said, well, there's the teaching is over here, and then the private students are over here, and we have this community, and da 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 da. And she said, that sounds like a really great idea. Literally reached into her purse and wrote me a check for $10,000 and says, here, follow your bliss.
Use that 10K to, buy rent, buy equipment, and get started,
Yep.
right?
Yep. We got a bank
Initially,
account. I mean, I
so
knew
was
from my time of teaching, the one thing that I always tell students when they're trying to break into any kind of making jewelry, the first
mhm,
people that you make friends with is your vendors, because
okay.
those vendors are going to help you. They want to help you any way that they can in order for you to follow your dream. So
Hmm,
I went to one of those conferences. I went and visited all the vendors in their vendor room, and I shook their hands and I took their cards and I talked to them, and every single one, it was just like met every single one. And then I still do this to this day. I have a stack of pre-printed, like, thank you cards, right? And every time I
okay.
meet somebody and I get their card, I write a
Hmm.
thank you note, and I put my
That's a good
business card
idea.
back every time. Nothing is more powerful than the written word, still.
Yeah, that's then gratefulness, just to thank someone for them and for you. It's a powerful
Yeah.
tool. Another powerful thing you mentioned was community. I realized the importance of community lately by going on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and just being in the monastery, quote unquote, and just feeling the community here. That uh, volunteering for some stuff and doing good karma, helping out, and just this little sense of community. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to build with my businesses. Was another powerful point that you mentioned. And I'm just curious, the woman that gave you 10K, like, are you still getting in touch with her? Like, do you still
Nope,
frequently talk to her, or no?
nope, nope. She
Uh,
just didn't see the school in both of their iterations, and then they just said, "Go for it," and they had sort of done their thing, you know? They
okay.
certainly watched everything that we did,
Mhm,
but they never really came back and was a part of what had gone on. It wasn't a mentorship. It was just a pure out and out gift. And that helped me a lot, in because she had no idea in crafting a school, but she knew
mhm,
that I probably had a good idea how to do it. And it was certainly very rough in the first couple of years. It was just like,
mhm,
how do you get people? And then we
mhm,
really had to think like, okay, we don't have a lot of money for
mhm,
brochures and, sending it. So I think what it is you just have the good entrepreneur. I always thought this. What makes an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur. First, I
mhm,
think they're I think they're born. I don't think you can teach it. I think there has to be something innate in you that
A
has
small
that.
thing,
You
yeah,
can,
a small seed.
yeah, I mean, the teaching can certainly help, but unless you have that place in your that passion and that place in your mind that that can turn those sort of ideas into reality. Certainly, taking the help along the way is great, but if you don't have that ability to say, "I think this is a good idea. I'm going to risk it, and I will jump off that cliff," because good
Yeah,
entrepreneurs are cliff jumpers. They are not
yeah, yeah,
people who are just stand back. Okay. The second
yeah.
thing is that we're visionaries. So a good entrepreneur, or at least for me, I don't know if I'm good or not, but um, I would I would visualize the thing happening. Okay. Henceforth, the whole thing of like how I'm going to have the school, I saw it. I saw it in my mind. All the people are going to be sitting here, and we have all this
Hmm.
tools over here, potterings over here, and then the sell stuff over here, and then we have our private students over there, and that is exactly how it came out. So
Yeah.
now comes the second part. Now you have to run it as a business. Okay. So I tried to get a business loan from the bank, and they all laughed at me. Okay, totally
Okay.
laughed at me. SBA came through, they helped. I still have a $15,000 credit line to just pay back whenever through SBA, and it's been, I haven't used it in quite a while, so it's, still
Hmm.
there, but it's there whenever I need it, which is great. But I
Hmm.
had to sit there and think, what's gonna set us apart from every other school, every other part, that what will be different? And the
Okay.
thing was different that I noticed is that when teachers, usually they would go to some nonprofit organization, because there really were very few private organizations,
Hmm.
usually
Hmm.
nonprofit and they would say, "Oh yes, we would love to teach you. We're going to pay you $150 a day, and then you have to take care of all of your own expenses and everything else." And I said, "That's
Hmm.
ridiculous, because we will never make. Oh, and by the way, if you sell your jewelry, we want 30%." I mean, that this is this
Say
is
what?
this is crazy. So I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, great, extortion," So I put forth a model, which I now still call the Metalworks template. And
Hmm.
the model was simple. You put the best teachers in, and you pay them the best salary that you can absolutely afford. And if they need all
Hmm.
their expenses paid, you pay it. If they need plane tickets, you pay it. If they need a tool, you make sure
Hmm.
that special teacher is in there for their class. Teachers
Okay.
have one job, and that's to teach my students. That's it.
Hmm.
Okay. Students, yes, we created relationships with students, but honestly, I don't want any student taking advantage of me, saying they couldn't get the ferry off an island and therefore I should give them credit. No, I'm
Okay.
sorry, because like an airplane, where I'm not going to, it not really, non-refundable, thank you. Um, and then I charged 3 times as much as most
Okay.
places, every other place did, okay?
Hmm.
But you're getting paid by the most coolest teacher on the planet, and
Yeah.
when I made that move, my workshops, instead of taking weeks and weeks and weeks to fill, they were filled within 20 to 30 minutes at the newer
I like
price.
the simplicity of it, and I also like the model. I mean, could we compare it to like a Ferrari vs a Toyota? Maybe, but it's the experience. Maybe not, because it's still affordable at the $150 price point or something like that, 200. I think people would pay to definitely be taught by the best, and have an
Yeah,
epic experience, so that they come back, so that they refer you,
right.
vs you hiring average people, and word of mouth not spreading. Do you realize mostly on word of mouth, even nowadays? I saw that you have an Instagram and Facebook. You put up some ads in there, or is it still mainly word of mouth?
It's just word of mouth. I just got a commission today for someone who's moved to Seattle. They want their wedding rings done. I mean, people know who I am. They know what I do. So I have more work than I absolutely know what I need to do with right now. Um, No, and the funny thing is that Metalworks really, I mean, there's no ads at Metalworks. There's no,
Mm,
they aren't anywhere. They just, it's total was word of mouth. But there
mhm.
was one more key component in the whole template for teaching, because the
Curious.
hardest thing that I ever recognized that when I went to teach in a workshop is that, you have no idea where anything is in that school. I don't know what's in their drawers. I'd spending like a few minutes or at least a couple of hours when before, like early, I would get there and I'd just be
Mhm.
opening drawers and find out
Okay.
where everything is. So with Metalworks, because we had the private community, all the private students that were all behind a door, with a window, um, I turned to them and said, "Hey, how would you like to be a TA for this famous teacher?" And they're like, "Yes, of course, of course, of course." And so now, in a
Mhm.
way, they became my scrub nurses for the surgery, okay, for
Okay.
the OR. And so the teacher would come in and they say, "Well, I'm looking for a particular file." And they just run over, open the drawer, zip, and there it is. Okay. And then they could move. So the most important thing for me in business, a teaching experience, writing, any of my art, is that if it does not serve a level of flow, then it's not going to work. It has to
Okay.
flow really seamlessly. Okay. And I will allude to your 10-day retreat because I'm wondering if was that Vipassana?
Yes, it was
I'm also I'm also a Vipassana person. So that is a
nice.
very, so I'm 3 times now on 10-day retreats, and I
Okay.
completely believe they change a way that I look at the world and how
Yes.
I operate. And so now it's sort of looking at this level of, I like to be excited, but it's sort of tempered in this way of
Yeah, I
equanimity.
get you.
So,
I
I
just want
get
to
you.
touch back on the genius of your strategy because you pick the best, you pay them the best, and you give them assistance, you give them everything they want.
Mhm.
They're like kings and queens, and you get
Yep,
out of their way.
yep,
And that strategy is very much smart. And I'm about to test it in my business too, because on my side, like with an agent, I've been testing a bunch of talents at high price points, low price points. Now we've been implementing, a bunch of things like, for example, daily meditations, daily yoga classes,
mhm.
paying your gym, paying your Airbnb. And yeah, I'm working on pampering my employees. Just that yet, like I'm yet to go after the best talent because in my sphere, best talent they might charge, I don't know, like $100 an hour, and that means like $1,000 per day for me. So I'm still in the midst of testing all that, but I like the smartness of it. I'm definitely taking notes here.
Yep, it's a good way. I mean, and I'm an outlier, okay? I didn't hire some bunch of managers and big media groups and everything else.
Yeah.
I focused on a particular demographic. So my
Mm,
demographic is women who are usually about 50 to 55 and older. That's my
mhm,
demographic,
mhm,
because
mhm.
these are women who have been taking care of their kids forever, and their kids are
Yep.
all going much into college now, and
Mhm.
now they're turning around saying, "But what about me?" Okay?
Yep.
And even with that, they come to the class, like they might take an 8-week beginning jewelry class, okay? So
Mm,
now they pay a lot of money for the 8-week jewelry class. They've got me teaching it, who's running the place. So now expectations are now running high from all of their friends saying, "Well, what are you making in this jewelry class?" Okay?
okay.
Jewelry, like any kind of craft, takes an incredible amount of time to understand the nuances and the construction and how things go, okay?
Mm.
So I had to work out a system for my students to take care of that expectation of I need to make something and show it off to my
The learning
friends.
curve.
Yes, and so by week 2, everybody had a simple band ring, polished band ring that they've all made on their finger, and that's something they could go, and because then they get to talk about it. "Oh my gosh, so I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this," and tell me where the word of mouth comes. That little tiny thing becomes the perfect movement for a word of mouth. And then you
Which again
multiply
is
that.
very smart. Very
It's
smart
just, it's
because
just,
for example, with my employees, right? Like when I onboard them, the new ones, they need these little small victories so that they can get momentum. And if not,
yep,
they just leave, and they burn out. Same for my clients. I need to show them in the first month that I can generate them 3 meetings at least, and that they can close at least one. Have some kind of low hanging fruit so that they don't burn out. So again, this is genius.
yep. I told you I had
I'm
a good story.
curious. Yeah, you have actually. You're very entertaining. What's the difference between the meditative state you get in when you're crafting jewelry vs the meditative state that you experience in
I
Vipassana?
think they're both in flow, but it's something also I call the zone. Okay. The zone
Okay.
is the zone. The zone is when you are no longer present. You are a vehicle for whatever is coming through. You're just the
Mhm.
vehicle to take it in. Okay. And and both times, the best work that I do in teaching and crafting, you know, I'm working on a big solo the installation. The best advice I can give myself at that point is to align myself to what it is to be like in a meditative state and get out of my
Mhm.
way. Okay.
Okay.
Because as soon as I start bringing my ego to it, I start bringing all the stuff to it. There's a lot of things that I can't control. I simply, my best move is to get out of my own way and let the process go
Okay.
through. Do I have failures or do I have falling? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. You can't move forward unless you fail a bit. Okay.
Yep.
Or I like to
Mhm.
say Simon Sinek. I like his falling is a good one. Good guy, by the way. I like him a lot. I will go and with this total idea, drawings, everything goes right, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
something goes horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. And I have a deadline, like I was
Yeah.
doing these man service awards. I literally have a deadline because somebody's going to go take it on a plane and fly it out to Nevada in 5 days. And I'm just
Mhm.
completely freaking out because this thing has to go on the plane. I'm just, first I call an expert and say, what the
Mhm.
hell did I do wrong? Try this, try this. Okay, go back. All right. So I go back. That seems to be working. Okay. I've got this thing. It seems to be working. And then, you just sort of muscle through it and muscle through it and muscle through it. But again, it's not to a lot of the accidents, but also there's happy accidents, things that I
Yep.
absolutely didn't expect to happen. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, where did that come from? Because it's coming from a place of me not trying to direct it, but a thing from something completely sideways that I didn't
Hmm.
understand. But
Yeah.
the key of it is that you always have to have an open mind to do it. Your mind
Intuition
can look.
sometimes leads us to very interesting paths, I would
Yep.
say. Sometimes errors are on purpose. A bunch of inventions, a bunch of game-changing inventions in our modern era have been like the result of errors. I could think of, for example, LSD. LSD was discovered
Mhm.
by accident, and penicillin, and like the filtration process, pasteurizing stuff, like all these amazing things have come on error. And I mean, we have like a couple minutes left. Do you still have time for two more questions?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Burning Man. What can you tell us about Burning Man community, and how did it shape you?
I think the first thing the day that I arrived, which was actually in my book, and I'm looking at this incredible community of all these little camps coming up around me, and they're building and decorating, and
Mhm.
I'm just sort of like, what planet did I just land on? Because it was just this planet. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people. It's insane. My first walkthrough was seeing a fish tank that was set
Mhm.
up on the roadway and two bean bags and these very confused fish that were lit up and you could sit at night and watch the fish go. It's just like, what? you know Great. The second one was a very pivotal sculpture that was in 2006, Hope and Fear. that was called Uchronia. It was sort of nicknamed the waffle because the people were Belgian and the Belgian waffle, but no, the name of it is Uchronia. And it was just this huge, huge, huge sculpture. They're just taking, I think, not 2x4s, but some other kind of wood, and they're just sitting with nail guns and creating this just entire sculpture that you can walk through it and in it. And it said to me right away, oh my God, okay, you would take the time to put that in a sculpture park, it would be 2 years. It's insurance, it's, committees and everything else. No, there was just this spontaneous, like, we have this thing and we've approved to do it and we're going to go for it and we're going to make it. And in the end, they burned it all up. And that was the other thing. It was like, oh my, so it was the temporal, it was sort of the wabi sabi of the impermanence that I absolutely loved on it. That you could not, that this circus just sort of like arrived, and colors and cars and people you would talk to. And I got separated from my husband and it was late at night and I was just freaked out because I didn't know how to find my camp. And this lovely person said, oh, you're there. Okay, I will walk you back there. And took 45 minutes to walk back to my camp. We had this lovely conversation and then you just kind of like drifted away. And then that was that. And it was that point in service that has been the one takeaway that I have had for all of these years. It's the takeaway in my art. It's the takeaway in how I teach, how I write. There is a level of noble service for me that I want to honor my craft. I want to honor my students. I want to honor the potential subject that I am writing about. And I think Burning Man gave me this one major takeaway. I have an entire community of people who are at my back. Through 2 years of COVID, whatever, we've been back and forth. This is how we've used Zoom, and we are each other's backs. And that just, to me, that I know, I have my estate lawyer who is now she's on my 4th referral to all burners because she's a person who gets it. That's all I needed. And she just does everybody really, really, really well. And so, yeah, I mean, I really want to set up the burner service directory because they're like vetted people who I know that they get who we are. It's very cool.
Last question. Where do you want to take Metalworks?
Well, Metalworks is gone. I mean, Metalworks is now under other ownership. Okay, they have now a nonprofit. There's another director, so it's on the way of what it's doing. So there's really nothing. I personally, it's a good question. It's sort of like, well, where do I want to take myself now? I want to keep writing books, and right now, if I have an ask, I need to have CBS run their blessing over my book. And this is going to be my biggest task, is not in writing it, but dealing with CBS, who has to grant me the license in order to research all of the archives so I can get into the photographs and take a look and see all of the jewelry that was there. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, we wish you the best for that, for your books, Karen. Thank you for taking the time to interview with me today. It was highly entertaining, and I keep you posted as per when this is online. All right.
Great. Thank you very, very much. I'm very, very appreciative of your kind outreach. It was lovely to meet you too.
Thank you, Karen. My pleasure. We'll stay connected.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Take care.